Ho, 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 brothers, sisters, and friends, and welcome to a special holiday edition of the Fight Like Hell podcast. This is the official podcast of the National Association of Letter Carriers, the union that represents over 290,000 active and retired letter carriers employed by the United States Postal Service. I'm your host, Ed Morgan, and with me, as always, is our national president, Brian Renfro. Happy holidays, Brian. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Eddie. Happy holidays to you. You sounded very joyful to start the podcast.
We have a really good episode here this week with two people, Ernie and Tayry from Branch 36, and they're going to talk about their Better Angels program that they do, getting toys and gifts out to the children in need.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. We were fortunate to honor them at our annual Heroes of the Year luncheon, where the judges that we use from the hundreds, if not thousands, of heroic things that letter carriers do, to honor them for an award that we give that's related to that type of service. So, we got to learn a lot about that. I'm sure a lot of our listeners saw it in the magazine back then. But it's really amazing what they do, and I think it'll pretty clearly come across the type people they are, obviously. But I think you'll also get that they are very interested in continuing to grow, but not just in Branch 36 where they're from, but to also assist others around the country that might want to take on an effort like this. So it was a really cool conversation with them.
Yeah. A few questions before we get into that segment. The JCAM, as we announced last week's episode, is out and available online. Can you just talk about the JCAM and then when will it be available in a paper copy?
Yeah, we're really happy to get this out and make it available electronically, which these days that's how most people use it. I think that's probably fair to say. We got it done reasonably quickly compared to if you look in years past, sometimes how long it's taken. A lot of that's because during the course of normal bargaining process, we actually negotiate a lot of JCAM language for the changes. So covers, of course, all the new stuff. There's some other, what we view as improvements that were made throughout. As you mentioned, the next step is to get it printed. That is a joint effort with the Postal Service where we split the cost of the printing to send one to every delivery unit. The union, of course, prints more than just the one that we purchase and send every delivery unit. So anytime you do something with the Postal Service and it involves some sort of purchase, there are additional steps that they have to go through, requests for information and requests for purchase and stuff like that. So all that's ongoing. We, of course, use, only union printers. So that kind of narrows it down even more. But that process is happening. And just as soon as we can get that wrapped up with them, we'll get the printer working on it, and it'll be available in hard copy, just the way it's been available over the last couple of contracts.
Right. So if you want to get it now, I'm going to ask Sarah, our producer, to put a link here on this episode so that we can have it and you can check it out electronically. And I have a few questions that are evergreen, if you will, this time of year. So let's get into those. When does the leave year end for for letter carriers, and when does the new leave year begin?
Yeah, good question. So the 2025 leave year ends January 9th of 2026. So the new leave year for 2026 begins on January the 10th. And, people often ask why it does occasionally fall on January 1st, but it ranges anywhere from late December through at some point in those first couple of weeks in January. This year, it's particularly late, but there's a really good reason for that. And that is that there are 365 days in a year. Every 4 years, there's 366 days in a year. And our leave year is typically 26 pay periods long. And the length of the calendar year and the length of the leave year are not exactly the same. So what happens is they have to designate when it starts. They're normally 26 pay periods. Every few years, we will have a leave year that actually has 27 pay periods. that is the point where it's sort of, if you want to view it as resets, where the leave year for the following year will go back and begin. Typically, it happens in December. So the Postal Service, basically, we do it as close to the beginning of the calendar year as we can do, but of course, it has to end at the end of a pay period and begin at the beginning of a pay period and maintain that 26 pay periods in a year, except for every few years when we have 27. But for this year's purposes going forward, in terms of leave usage and leave carryover and things like that, the leave year ends January 9th is the last day of this leave year, and the new leave year begins on January 10th.
Okay. Let's get into the Christmas holiday. If you're a regular carrier and you work your Christmas holiday, what's the pay rate?
Yeah, so in Article 11, Section 4 of our agreement, there is a pay rate for work on Christmas that is different than work at any other time. So I think we have to view when we actually work on a holiday, we are paid from two different ways, let's say. So let's start with the work you actually do. So working any holiday, you get paid for the work that you actually perform. The difference between Christmas and every other day is because it's Christmas, you get paid time and a half for the work that you actually do. And again, this is if you actually work on the Christmas holiday for a full-time letter carrier or a PTF. You then are paid for the holiday, just like everyone else is. So if you worked 8 hours, just for the sake of an example and for the sake of this conversation, if you worked December 25th, you worked 8 hours, you would be paid time and a half for that 8 hours, but then you also were paid an additional 8 hours of straight time of something that's called holiday leave, unless you elect to have that credited to your annual leave balance, which we'll talk about in just a minute. So if you work on Christmas Day, you're going to be paid time and a half for whatever time you actually work, plus you're paid an additional 8 hours of holiday leave pay at the straight time rate, just like everybody else is paid holiday leave, those that don't work.
So let's get into the New Year's holiday, which would be a regular holiday. Now, how does that work for a regular carrier?
Right. So New Year's, if you work, you would get paid for the time you work as normal, not time and a half, because that is specific to Christmas in Article 11, Section 4. But if you, using the same example, if someone worked on January 1st, they worked 8 hours, then they would get paid 8 hours for what they actually worked, and they would get paid an additional 8 hours of holiday leave, just like everyone else, again, unless they elected to have it credited to their annual leave balance, which we'll get into here in just a minute.
So what is the pecking order for bringing carriers in on the holiday? And like, where's that spelled out so that carriers can see it and understand it and learn, so they can explain it to their carrier, their brothers and sisters on their workroom floor.
Yeah, so Article 11 of our agreement covers really all things holidays. And Article 11 lays out a pecking order that is kind of the JCAM actually in Article 11 lays out a default pecking order that's used. That default pecking order is used unless the local parties in their local memorandum of understanding per Article 30 of the agreement have negotiated a different pecking order than what is included in the JCAM in Article 11. So most of our branches around the country in their LMOUs have negotiated their own pecking order, even in some cases that may be the same pecking order that appears in the JCAM in Article 11. But in short, there's a pecking order. If you have it in your local agreement, your local memorandum of understanding, that's the pecking order you follow. In the absence of language in the local memorandum of understanding, there's a pecking order spelled out in the JCAM that is sort of the default, if you want to call it that you would use. So if you've got questions in your office about what the holiday pecking order is in your LMOU, I would advise you to talk to your shop steward or contact one of your branch officers, and they can explain that. It's also, Eddie, I think really important to point out that This holiday scheduling that happens under the provisions of Article 11 happens on an actual holiday, but it's also applicable to someone's designated holiday. So if you're a, let's say there's a Monday holiday, we have several of those, right? Labor Day, Columbus Day, President's Day. There's multiple holidays that happen on Mondays, and Mondays in almost every office around the country, there's a group of carriers, at least one, usually more, that's their regularly scheduled day off, which means Saturday becomes their holiday. So you use this pecking order or these procedures in Article 11, which include this pecking order, to schedule not just on the holiday itself, but also on that designated holiday. So the provisions of Article 11 in a scenario, let's look at Christmas coming up, is on Thursday, the 25th. The Postal Service, there are people that will have Thursday as their day off routinely, which means that's their non-scheduled day. So Wednesday, the 24th, becomes their holiday. So the holiday scheduling procedures in Article 11, which includes that pecking order you talked about, are applicable to not just Thursday if they need someone to work on Christmas, but also on Wednesday, because that is a designated holiday if someone in the office has Thursday as their normal non-scheduled day.
Got it. All right, now let's get into the holiday leave credit. How do you apply
Sure.
for it and how do you use it? And another follow-up question there is, can you bank that leave into the following year, or do you have to use it in this leave year?
Yeah, so this is something that we first negotiated in the 2019 agreement. It actually went into effect, I believe, on the 4th of July holiday in 2021. So on Independence Day, that was after the 2019 agreement was ratified. And basically what it says is if you work your holiday, so you actually go to work, rather you're going to get paid for the work that you do, but rather than being paid 8 hours of straight time or holiday leave pay, because it's a holiday, you can elect to have that 8 hours credited to your annual leave balance rather than just simply being paid for it at that point in time. The process for doing this, if you choose to do it, there's a box on the leave slip, the PS Form 3971 you can fill out. I think there's an important thing, especially this time of year, Eddie. The second part of that question you ask is really important. If you elect to do this, and you're scheduled to work, let's say you're scheduled to work on Christmas, or next week you get to schedule. I guess that would be, yeah. You get to schedule, and you're scheduled to work on New Year's, and you fill out a leave slip, and you elect, I don't want to get the holiday leave pay right now. I want to have 8 hours credited to my annual leave balance. At that point, once it's credited, it becomes just like any other annual leave. So, number one, the way it's used is exactly the same as any other annual leave. It's going to be subject to whatever the normal leave provisions are there in your office. Number two, as we approach the end of this leave year, and someone, for example, is at the leave carryover maximum, you can't carry over additional leave. So it's just like any other leave. So that's really when you make this decision, if you're scheduled to work on Christmas or you're scheduled to work on New Year's Day, you certainly can elect to have it credited. But if you're someone who, already has 520 hours of annual leave, which is the maximum you can carry over into the 2026 leave year, which once again starts on January the 10th, and you have this leave credited, that's going to add to your annual leave balance, and you still can only carry over 520 hours. So just consider that where you are. Most letter carriers that are at the maximum carryover are keenly aware of how much leave they have, as we all know. But it's definitely something that we should consider. So you can absolutely bank the leave for next year or long-term future, but it does add to your balance, and the same carryover limit is in effect. This leave does not change. So the easiest way to remember this is once it's credited, it is no different than any other annual leave.
Okay. Can you give us an update on the unsettled LMOU cases?
Yeah, we've got I think almost 400 items that have been impassed, and just to talk about what that is, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's almost 400 offices around the country that have impassed items. We have some where there are 22 items in Article 30 of our agreement that the local parties can negotiate. Each of those are individual impasse items. So we got some places where they impassed all 22 of them. So that adds up to that 400. But I think we talked on a previous episode. We have done some specialized training for our arbitration advocates. So we're in the process of scheduling these for interest arbitration at the regional level to resolve these LMOU impasses. At the same time, our NBA offices continue to have discussions with the Postal Service at the area level. We're doing a little bit of this even at the national level to try to resolve these issues before we get to the point of arbitration. I would expect that some of these will go forward to arbitration, but if our history tells us anything, typically what we find are the items that the management impassed, which in the local negotiations process, management can impasse an item. Um, Typically, we're able to resolve. So I would strongly suspect, just based on what we've seen historically, that a significant number of the items, because a significant number of them are impasses initiated by management, are issues that we should be able to resolve prior to getting to hearing. But it's ongoing. Of course, getting those resolved and in place at the local level is a priority for our national business agents and all the folks that work in their offices.
So this will be our last podcast episode for 2025. I'm going to take a few days off and go back up to Philadelphia, see some family and friends. So we'll have another episode that first week of January. Um, can you talk to our members about what they can look forward to in 2026 with the NALC?
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff coming up in 2026, and I think we've talked about on our first episode of next year, sort of doing a review of 2025 and then a look forward to 2026, which will be a little more in depth than just a couple of minutes we'll spend on it here. But in a lot of ways, we're going to face many of the same challenges we faced in 2025 in terms of the government and the impact on the Postal Service and our jobs, though. As we'll talk more about there, I feel like we've made a significant amount of progress with the new government, let's call it, that was in place at the beginning of 2025, the administration and the Congress. But we're really excited about a lot of different things, continuing our collective bargaining prep. Here in January, we've got another rank and file committee coming in. We're planning events all over the country that everyone's going to hear about really soon. So there'll be an opportunity for all of our members to get involved there. Of course, opening bargaining in February, and that process will play out at least initially over the course of this spring. And so far, the preparation has been excellent, and we're excited about continuing that and then really getting into the bargaining process. I think on the education front, we've got a lot of things that us, at least at the headquarters level, are really excited about. We've two new leadership academy classes, Ed, which are kind of your thing, and we've also got some new training that we're going to roll out and make available to the branches to send people here, an informal step aid training that's awesome for new shop stewards, and we'll train some arbitration advocates, new ones. We're going to continue to train advocates. Of course, our NBAs all over the country are planning their big regional trainings that they have per the Constitution, but also the trainings that they do. We also are really excited in 2026 to launch something we've been working on for quite a while now, and thankfully we're close to the point of being able to deploy it, and that's an e-learning platform for our members. So that's coming soon. Something that every member, if you're in a place where you can listen to this podcast, you're likely in a place where you can jump into this e-learning platform and learn as little or as much as you want about all kinds of stuff. So we're excited to make that available. And then, of course, we have a national convention in 2026 coming up in August in Los Angeles. Our preparation for that really never stops. It's been ongoing here the last few months. Certain pieces of it, of course, will ramp up. I know a lot of our branches out there have already made a lot of their plans, and that's where we, get together and do the business of the union, and among other things, discuss resolutions about collective bargaining and about legislation and general resolutions about the union. And there's been a lot of activity there at the branch level, at the state level, at state conventions that have happened in 2025. So our conventions every 2 years have really done nothing but just gotten, in my view, bigger and better, and we're excited about continuing that in 2026.
Well, sounds great. We got 1 week left of peak season. Just want to thank all the carriers out there for all the hard work they do to show the real professionalism of the Postal Service. Again, remember, make sure you stay safe out there. Take care of yourself. Take care of your families. And just want to wish you all a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate during this time of the year. And we'll see you in 2026. Brian, what do you have to say to our members out there?
Yeah, basically, Eddie, just echo what you said. The peak season is never easy. I personally think over the years it's gotten more difficult because just the simple increase in parcels. I mean, our job's gotten harder 12 months out of the year, but in particular this time of year. And Eddie, as you said, we're getting close to the end, and absolutely are, not just us as a union, but, our customers, of course, are also appreciative of all the hard work that our members have put in. I also think it's really important, just, it's not over. Continue to be safe. It's seemingly been a pretty cold December in most places, and winter's here, and as we've talked about before, that creates a lot of potentially dangerous situations in addition to the extra work that's out there. So we appreciate everything that you do, and just ask you, please, remain diligent about your safety. There's nothing more important to you. There's nothing more important to your family. There's nothing more important to us as a union than doing everything we can, both collectively together, as a union, but also on an individual basis to ensure that every single letter carrier works safely. And happy holidays to everyone. The holiday season's a special time of year. I think it's really special for people like us who, it's our jobs see a fairly significant change surrounding the holidays. We see things throughout the year, really get the kind of pulse of what's going on in the communities where we are every day. And I think the vast majority of us can, share that over the years, that's experience, even though it's hard work for us, has been nothing but uplifting. And I'm sure our members have experienced that all over the country. So we appreciate what you do and hope everybody has a safe and enjoyable holiday season.
Well said. All right, let's get into the episode here with Ernie and Tayry from Branch 36 and their Better Angels program.
We are back on the Fight Like Hell podcast, and we have two very special guests to talk about really a really special thing that happens every year. Letter carriers do things all over the country, and we're excited during this holiday season to be able to highlight one of those. So we'll start off. Instead of me introducing you, I'll let you guys introduce yourselves and just talk a little bit about who you are and where you're from. Ernie, we'll start with you.
Okay, well, I'm from Brooklyn, New York, born and raised in Coney Island. I've actually started the post office in '87, so I got some years in it in the post office and seen a lot. What I can say about myself as far as being postal related and actually growing up, I'm gonna go back to my Coney Island days where as a kid and we only received toys from the police department when they were doing it, the bars that were doing it over there. And because basically that's what, we're going to be talking about. And I grew up that way and didn't realize by us actually doing toy drives and stuff like that, I'm doing the same thing we did in well, actually the community actually has done, and which is pretty awesome. And I didn't even realize I was going right back then, and now I'm doing it. Didn't even realize that.
Ernie, that's incredible. I know you and I know what you guys do, and we've talked about it before, and I had no idea. That's amazing. All right. Well, thanks, Ernie. Tyree, how about you? Introduce
Hola,
yourselves.
hola, hola. So my name is Tayry Vega. I work at an Audubon station. Um, I'm originally from Puerto Rico. I was born out there in the island. Love my island. I came to New York when I was about, I say, 6 years old. I've been in the Postal Service since 1993. I have done food drives. I've done a whole bunch of stuff for the union because I'm passionate about it. And like Ernie said, growing up was rough. We grew up in a family with my stepmom, and as a kid, I never got a bike. I always wanted a bike. And when I turned 21 is when I got a bike for Christmas. Ain't that something? So the toy drive is very, very good for a lot of reasons. There's a lot of children that live in poverty level and they don't get gifts. I have a child with special needs. She's 25. And when I first met Ernie, he did a Christmas thing at her school, and the looks on these children is priceless. Receiving a toy, a basketball, a pair of sneakers, anything like that, it just put a smile on your face and put a smile on their face. So it's something very good. This is a very good organization, and I'm proud to be part of it. I'm so glad Ernie brought me on board, and it's just something good. And when you do good, good things come back to you. And that's all I could say.
Very well said. Well, Ernie and Tyree, we really appreciate you guys joining us, and we're excited to have the chance to talk about something really special that you guys are a big part of in your branch and Branch 36. So, Ernie, let's start with the program itself that we're here to talk about, Better Angels. Why don't you, just for our listeners, tell them a little bit about it and just generally what it does, and then we'll dig into some of the history and some of the details.
Yeah, definitely, without doubt. I mean, well, first of all, also too, I would like to thank Branch 36, Charlie Heege, our president. Some people call us Charlie's Angels, but anyways,
Mhm.
but anyways, how we got started with this program, or you see, I don't like to look at it as a program. It's more like a voluntary activity because we are basically 100% volunteers that actually do this. And the way it actually started was one act of kindness to a child. Um,
Yes.
we how could I say, we made the best Christmas that she ever had. And you can actually, if you go to our website, betterangelsforkids.org, you'll actually see the whole uh, news reporter uh, that was done, and it was just awesome. So, but what we actually do, we started off with a small tour drive. Um, we done it in honor of Valeria Reyes, the little girl that she had passed away from brain tumor that I didn't actually know she had at the time. But we started off with her. Then it was funny. Well, not funny. Her We were going to do a toy drive for Sloan Kettering. And then her mom said, well, don't do it for Sloan Kettering because they just let you drop off the toys. Do it for, people less fortunate that's in it. So we decided, okay, we'll go to the kids. And we started off with a women's shelter. And then from there, it started growing. to a school right now that we have 800 kids with total disabilities that we do. We actually adopt them and we do them every year. And it's amazing how we get that going. And during our growing up phase, I should say, we actually joined ventures with Metropolitan Jewish Health System. We helped them create uh, an Arts for Soul kit, which actually the little girl Valeria, she belonged to, I didn't know she would belong to a hospice. And we had a care kit made, and what they actually do, they stay with the child for the bereavement process, and 1 year later after that. And it's a project that we loved, but it was really heartbreaking because when you're with a child and you know that they're not going to be here tomorrow, um, that's hard. That's
Mm.
but it was great. But we have done a lot by just doing acts of kindness, random acts of kindness, and now what we're doing, we're concentrating on a toy drive because I find that to be the simplest way to bring joy to these kids. And you can't just not what do you call it? Feel. It's like some, when you have your first child, you can't explain it to anybody on how that feeling actually feels until you see these kids. And like Tayry was saying, um, the looks on their face is everything, and it's priceless. And that's why we actually really do it. So it's it's great. It's great. And
Yeah,
It's
it's
like
just
it's like a burst of sunshine. That's what it is.
yeah. I mean that and it's really we're talking. It's the holiday season.
yeah,
When we're talking about this, and I think to most, if not all of us, bringing joy to people and kindness is really what it's all about. So, Tyree, let's talk about how the members of the branch get involved and if they want to contribute, or I suppose if anybody even beyond Branch 36 wanted to contribute, tell us how that works.
So basically, you'll have like a service talk on the work floor. And what I did was I said, hey, we're doing a toy drive. If anybody wants to donate, a toy, or they want to chip in or do a collection, that we could go to any store like Target, I mean, Dollar Tree, whatever, and buy just toys. You make kids happy with the littlest things.
Mhm.
My daughter has Down syndrome. She's 25 years old. And when Ernie and the Better Angels went to her school, I think there was about maybe 50 kids, right, Ernie? Something like that. I don't remember. It was so long ago. But when we went there with all them toys and everything, they could just donate. Donate. You could go to any store and buy a toy for $10, a doll, a Barbie doll, uh, even clothes. It's a toy drive, but I've seen boxes that have toys with clothes, coats, anything that will make that child smile. So that's what I did. I had a service talk, and I collected, I think, about $100, because sometimes people want to help, but they don't know how to help. So you could just take the money and you just go buy a couple of gifts, and you can make probably 5, 6 kids happy with that $100. Anything helps, especially this time of year.
And obviously a ton of the members in Branch 36 get involved just based
Mhm.
on the numbers that Ernie, I know you mentioned earlier, and talking about the capacity of where you store these, and you're having to look for bigger spaces now. But let's go back to the beginning, and Ernie, why don't you just tell us about sort of where this idea came from and how it got started? And I think what would be really interesting for our listeners is um, it's called Better Angels, and where did that come from? Where did the name Better Angels come from? So How did this get started, and where'd the name Better Angels come from?
Okay. I'll go back to when I was on TV, and I was a hero back then for about maybe 2 weeks. But I was watching it. If you watch it on our website, we have a reporter. His name was John Matakis, and I'm listening to him, and he had said, I think the phrase was, "This Christmas was brought by um, the better angels of human nature." And all right, I thought that was really nice. I was just like, wow, that's pretty cool what he called us. And then after watching it maybe about 8, 9 times, but I go back to it every year. I go back to that video every year because that's what it's all about. But I'm sitting there and I'm saying to myself, what about an organization called the Better Angels of Our Human Nature, created by postal employees? And it was just running because it sounds a lot better than Ernie's gang. I mean, you either like me or you don't, but it sounds like an umbrella. I thought it would be a perfect name for the letter carriers and postal employees that do good all the time. And one of our directors, Don Daggett, I went over to him and I says, "What do you think about the name of the better angel of our human nature?" He says, "Where'd you come up with that?" I go, "Well, it was the news reporter called us that. Well, how about starting an organization, a 501(c)(3)?" And he says, "Okay, I'll work on it." So then before you know it, it was done. And if you see our logo, that was actually created by Metropolitan Jewish Health System. They created that logo for us. And I had it trademarked. And we're proud of it. And we're getting other stations involved. So this year has been more, I'm going to say groundbreaking, because we're getting more stations that are involved, and they're 100%. We have Ralphie Feliciano, who's in Church Street. They just sent me pictures over how they decorated a postcard to put toys in. You see, because our idea is that if you put a postcard in the middle of the floor and you have what do you call it, a toy drive, and you announce it, you open it up to everybody. You open it up to the mail handler, the clerks, supervisors, managers, and everybody to come together and just fill up a postcard. It was I was like, one time I was estimating, like, says, okay, if we have 48 stations and we had a postcard in each station, and two of them could hold like 200 toys. You know how many toys we would have? It's phenomenal. But yes, there's a lot of our members that really like to get involved, especially when it comes to a child. And that's where we're in the phase of growing. That, yeah, we are going to need guidance, and we will be looking for guidance from you, Brian, and Branch 36, so we don't legally fall on uh, anybody's toes, so to say. But management, from my perspective and from my experience, I should say, they're aboard 100%. And if at all anything on this time of year, it closes that gap between management and employee just a little. Because we actually had a manager that was really hard. I can call him other names too, but he was really hard. But he was the one who actually told us, let's invite the family to give the kids underneath the Christmas tree in FDR station. And I go, wow, okay, that shocked me, because I didn't think he wanted anything to do with it. But yeah, it you just never know what's in the heart of people who are even they got this persona of just being hard to talk to and whatnot. Everything is just business. But Yeah, I found that it does a great job as far as connecting carriers and management and a good way to do this also too is matter of fact, I actually drew up some proposals for management and for the union. So this way we're straight and narrow that we know we're not crossing any barriers because it is 100% volunteer and off the clock. Um, because I know management, but they can't figure how we pull this off and not affect the operation at all. But we do.
We find a way. Now, you guys
Oh
have
yeah, we
in
find a
the
way.
branches
Mhm.
just done a wonderful job. You know, you mentioned Charlie, your
Mhm.
president, who's also a national trustee. As we're recording this, he's here in DC with me
Oh, okay.
today. So it's a definitely a big collective effort. So Tyree, let's talk a little bit about just kind of the nuts and bolts of how this works. So, of course, the holiday season where we are right now is kind of the crescendo, I guess. That's,
Mhm.
where we are able to, you guys bring the maximum amount of joy and put the most smiles on faces, as you put it, which I think is a really good way to put it. But it's not like something where you guys just, sort of wake up in December and start working on it. It's something that has a lot of other things that happen throughout the year. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about the prep and I know Ernie's already mentioned a couple of other organizations and partners that help out. What does it look like building this over the course of the year to maximize the benefit that we can do around this time of year?
Well, I'm fairly new. I just came on board, but like I mentioned before, Ernie starts, we've been meeting Zoom meetings like um for like 2 months already. So, the kids decorated some boxes. He takes the boxes to the places. He sets it up. In the stations, we do the postcards. We decorate the postcards. And basically, it's just a team effort. Everybody chips in, everybody helps out. And then Ernie comes and he'll collect all the toys and put it in that little box room that he needs more space now because there's so much toys. So basically, they picked the shelter, the women's shelter, right, Ernie? And
Yeah.
some and certain schools. And the week before Christmas, we're gonna go to what's that school? And it's in
PS 96,
Yes.
196
Yeah,
X.
196. And just give out the toys and just make children smile. It's a team effort. It takes a lot of work. And like Ernie said, this is all volunteer. We volunteer and we put our little wings on and we do make it happen. Well, Ernie makes it happen. Ernie makes it
No,
happen.
actually, we make it happen.
Yeah.
We act this year. We actually started. I'm going to say 5 months earlier because I found that every time when we started we're like really cutting it close. Uh,
Right.
but this year we were well organized. We actually went out into the street, got the community together, and I can't believe this year is the best year the community actually got together. See, everybody's route. Well, we're in the cities, and we got a lot of high rises in uptown on the east side. So we send out letters to the community boards, the members. We go around off the clock. we go
Mhm.
we go around, and one thing that we do say in our letters when we're asking to put toy collection boxes in these buildings or businesses that we are not sanctioned by the United States Postal Service, that we were created out of love from the hearts of all postal employees. And because sometimes when the tenants and the business will, oh, the post office is doing this. No, it's not a post office program. It's the postal employees that are actually taking up on this. This is your mail carriers that actually care, and
Right.
and they love it, and they love it. Matter of fact, um, I was walking past a comedy strip in New York on Second Avenue, and I was saying, I wonder if they would put a box in there. So you know what? I just went in there and I asked them, and they said, "Yeah, why not?" So we got one in a comedy strip they're doing. And if you know anything about Ronnie Dangerfield's comedy club, I figured, all right, let me go to First Avenue and let me ask them. So I went over to them and I says, you know what? He says, you know the comic strip on Second Avenue? They said they could do a better toy drive than you. And he goes, what are you talking about? So I gave him some of our flyers. I says, this is what we're doing. We're all about, oh yeah, all right, put a box there. So we got two comedy clubs that actually joined in the community.
They're in
But
competition right now.
yeah, but you know what? What it was special too is that um, we have a school, PS 290. Um, they got involved and started decorating our boxes, which was awesome. And I find that a lot of the tenants in business like really love the boxes that the kids actually done. So the teacher decided to make it a community lesson. That's in the making. In fact, what I would like, if I can get an email, I would like the community themselves to actually tell you about how much of an impact we're actually having. Because I have them, we have the archdiocese. Matter of fact, this Sunday coming up is Hanukkah. And we have a friend who takes care of autism kids in the school. So we will be crossing over from Christmas to Hanukkah. Well, actually, it's Hanukkah first. So,
Mhm.
which is awesome because, in my opinion, there is no no wall when it comes to kids. No religion, no nationality, whatever issues may be. It's the kids. There is it's all about the kids. And the community wise, this year the community actually really got it. Matter of fact, Chick-fil-A has a toy collection box in there. And we didn't think they were going to do that, but they did. I was kind of surprised, but that's how much we're growing. So my advice also too, if any stations want to actually do a toy drive, and if they actually want to reach out to us, they can go under the umbrella of the Better Angels, and we will help them out and guide them. Uh, we can let them use our logo and make a difference. Make a difference. And if anybody wants to contribute, just go to the betterangelsforkids.org where you can make donations if you would like. But just as important, if you want to start a toy drive, yeah, we can help you out. We can help you out because I believe this is something that management will permit. And don't forget, it's a voluntary activity, I should say.
Well, off the clock.
Yeah. I mean, I got the proposal in there for
Yeah.
if let's say you have a labor management meeting, and if you go to the branch meeting, and we'll talk about it, and I will definitely be reaching out because if we're taking off the way we're going to take off, we need the guidance. We need the guidance. Um, and like we were saying before, we started this early, so one phase, we go out there, we get commitments. And even in some stations where you can't actually put a box in any building because it will be ripped off or stolen or whatever it is,
Hmm.
a lot of the stations will have a pledge sheet going around. Matter of fact, we have one in Lenox Hill North. No, actually, yeah, no, South is doing a collection. They're committed a couple of dollars, and we'll go out, we buy the toys, and we just fill up the bin. And but you'll be surprised how many people actually really want to get involved, and a lot of people really don't know how to get involved, but you do it from the heart. You do it from the heart, and that's what we're looking for. Because I believe um, doing a toy drive in every station, we could be just as big as the food drive. There's no reason why we can't. Um, it's just a matter of just putting the metal to the pedal. So,
Exactly.
And if I may also add,
Sure.
you would be so surprised what the community does for a letter carrier. Because remember, in any kind of weather, we bring them their medicines, their bills, their mail, and they appreciate us. So if we ask, say, hey, we're doing this toy drive, do you want to donate a toy? They're more than happy to do so. Your customers are your best friends. They're the ones who help you through anything, you know. We're there for them. We serve the community, and now the community is helping us bring smiles to these children. And I think that's a very important part also.
Very well said. So, one last question. You guys both in your self introductions talked some about your childhood and things you experienced then, and how that has almost sort of come full circle to what you're doing now to try to put smiles on people's faces. But I think this is a really powerful piece of this. Obviously, the reason that we do it is to help folks and spread joy and kindness. And Tyree, as you said, to put smiles on people's faces. But I'm
Yes.
really curious, being as involved in this as you both are at this point, how has this effort impacted you as a person? Tyree, let's start with you.
Wow. So I will say definitely the year that Ernie and his angels came to my daughter's school, that made me feel wonderful that he was able and we were able as a team to do something for these children that they didn't expect it. So when Ernie asked me, "Hey, do you want to come aboard as a volunteer for the Better Angels?" I said, "Definitely." Because I'm not doing this, to get a pat on the back. I'm doing it because I'm a passionate person when it comes to do anything. You ask me, hey, you want to do this campaign? Hey, you want to do this campaign? I'm there. I'm due 100% because I like to do it, you know, and especially for children, like being a single parent for a while with my daughter. I had three female children, and it was a struggle. Christmas wasn't that great, but I made the best of it. And if we're here and we can help make 20 families better, one family better, it's an effort. And it brings you joy, it brings you happiness, you just smile to see them smile because nobody knows anybody's struggles. Everybody has a struggle, and we're just here to help them and just make it just a tiny happy, just a little bit more happy. And I know people will give. I know people will give because it's out of the kindness of their heart. Especially with special needs children and the women's shelter, because that's a struggle in itself. You're in a shelter with your child, and what do you do? Where do you get it? How do I get this? How do I make their Christmas special? So that's where we come in, and Ernie's doing a wonderful job, and I'm just tagging along with him and enjoying the ride. I'm enjoying the ride.
Excellent. So,
well,
Ernie, what about you? How has this affected you? I know
it,
it's given you. I know I feel like I can fairly say it's given you as much joy as the folks that have benefited from it over the years.
I'm gonna because you know what, I had time to actually think about this on it, it's like sometimes we sit down by ourselves and ask us what's our purpose. And I'm like, I'm 65. I'm saying, well, what the heck is my purpose? And and I've been doing this toy drive, and how it actually changed me from just when I picked up that little girl and bring her to her apartment, put her down, stopped her from crying. There was just a connection of just wanting to do something better for her and everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was reflecting on, my purpose, maybe this is my purpose, bringing joy to kids. But I had gotten a deeper understanding of the power of community connection and kindness. Do you realize we as letter carriers, postal workers go far beyond of what we do on a daily basis? And sometimes we don't even realize it because when we're
Yeah.
walking through the streets and that elderly person wants to stop to talk to you, or they come and bring you some cookies or whatever it is, or even you stopping a child from crying, you don't know what a ripple effect that has on somebody. So for me, how it changed me is that because I just got it just brought me to a point where this is what I love to do. I do it for the joy of these smiles of these kids and the families that we help. And we are going to um, bring more joy to thousands of other people. And it this organization isn't just about accomplishment. It is about the joy and the kindness and the happiness and the light that you actually bring to the children and to families and in this world altogether.
Mm-hmm.
We are making a difference, a powerful difference. And if I could inspire anybody to do toy drives or anything else of act of kindness and stuff, go for it. Don't be afraid. Just do it. You're gonna find people who are not going to be with you or on the same emotional level as you, but don't worry about it. You'll attract the people that actually want to make a difference. You don't worry about those who don't. And I believe that us letter carriers and postal employees, we are in that position every single day because, hey, you got the Heroes Program. We see everybody doing great things in the community altogether.
Yes.
Let's let that shine, bigger and better. So yeah,
Excellent.
it changed my outlook in the world.
Awesome. Well, thank Ernie and Tayry. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you for all the work that you've done here, and of course, along with all the members of Branch 36. It's really an incredible program that you have. For the listeners, we will put in the notes for this episode of the podcast links to the website Ernie mentioned, so you can find out more information about it. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and have a great holiday.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Fight Like Hell podcast. Please subscribe so that you don't miss an episode, and please share this podcast with our NALC brothers and sisters. You can follow the NALC on social media using Facebook, X, and Instagram. You can find links to our accounts in the episode description. May your steward be by your side, and may the union have your back. Happy holidays, everyone.